Kira stood at the edge of the garden, watching the pairing ceremony from a distance. The colorful lights from the celebration cast long shadows across the flowering plains of Nebus. She did not move closer. She knew she was not welcome. "You should not hide in the darkness," a voice said behind her. Kira turned to see her father, Lord Tayun, his formal robes shimmering in the dim light. His face showed concern. "I am not hiding," Kira said. "I am respecting tradition." Lord Tayun sighed. He was an important man on Nebus, the ambassador to the Galactic Council. His voice helped make decisions that affected many worlds, but he could not change how people saw his daughter. "You are of the House of Tayun," he said. "You have every right to be at the ceremony." Kira looked down at her father. She always had to look down. At nearly 8 feet tall, she towered over most males of their species. The average Nabi female stood just 5 feet tall. Males typically reached 6 feet. Kira was different, and on Nebus, different meant wrong. "We both know what will happen if I go," she said. Lord Tayun could not argue. Last year, when Kira had attended the pairing ceremony, the whispers had been like a storm. Mothers had pulled their sons away. Elders had frowned. One young male had laughed openly, asking if Kira was some new species. "Come home when you are ready," Lord Tayun said, touching her arm gently. "Your mother has prepared your favorite meal." Kira nodded and watched her father walk back to the ceremony. From her spot on the hill, she could see everything. Young males and females danced together in the center of the garden. Parents talked in small groups, planning future pairings. Elders sat in their special chairs, nodding approval when a good match danced by. No one looked for Kira. No parent would suggest their son pair with the giant daughter of Lord Tayun, no matter that she came from an important family, no matter that she had scored highest in her education group, no matter that she could name every plant on Nebus and knew how to make them grow better. She was too tall. That was all anyone saw. Kira sat on the soft grass and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there were worlds where being different might not be so bad. "The application has been approved," Lord Tayun announced at breakfast 1 week later. Lady Gia, Kira's mother, nearly dropped her cup. "So soon? I thought there would be more time." Kira looked between her parents. "What application?" Lord Tayun slid a small silver disc across the table. "The Interspecies Exchange Program. You have been accepted." Kira picked up the disc with shaking hands. The Interspecies Exchange Program was new and controversial. It allowed citizens of Galactic Council worlds to live and work on other planets or space stations. Many Nabi thought it was dangerous. Why let outsiders learn their ways? Why risk young Nabi being influenced by strange ideas? "But I did not apply," Kira said, confused. "I applied for you," Lord Tayun said. "After what happened at the marking ceremony yesterday, I thought you might want a fresh start." Kira looked down. The marking ceremony had been even worse than the pairing ceremony. All Nabi who reached 27 cycles had to be officially marked as matable or unmatable. The Council of Elders had not even needed to discuss Kira. The Kyo head elder had simply stamped her records with the unsuitable mark. She was now officially unmatable. Forever. "Where would I go?" Kira asked, her voice small despite her large size. "Harmony Station," her father replied. "It is the central hub for 12 different species in the Galactic Council. Humans run most of it." "Humans?" Lady Gia said, her voice showing worry. "They are so new to the Council. Do they even understand proper behavior?" Lord Tayun smiled. Slightly. "They are different. That is why I thought it might be good for Kira." Kira turned the disc in her hands. It showed a spinning image of Harmony Station, a massive wheel-shaped structure floating in space. "When would I leave?" she asked. "In 2 weeks," her father said, "if you want to go." Kira thought about her life on Nebus. She worked in the family gardens, growing plants that no one but her parents ever came to see. She studied books alone. She walked in the forests where no one would stare at her. "What would I do there?" she asked. "The station needs botanical experts," Lord Tayun explained. "They are trying to grow food from 12 different worlds. You would help in their gardens. Lady Gia reached across the table and took Kira's hand. You do not have to go, my daughter. You will always have a home here. Kira looked at her mother's small, delicate hand resting on her own large one. Lady Gia had always been kind, always told Kira she was beautiful just as she was. But even her mother could not change how the world saw her. I want to go, Kira said suddenly. The words surprised her as much as her parents. Lord Taeyun nodded slowly. I thought you might. The next 2 weeks passed quickly. Kira packed her few belongings and said goodbye to the plants in her garden. She recorded messages for her cousins who had always been kind to her. She studied information about Harmony Station and the species who lived there. The humans interested her most. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, making them the newest members of the Galactic Council. According to the information discs, humans varied greatly in size. Some were as small as 5 feet, others as tall as 7 feet. This gave Kira hope. Perhaps among humans her height would not seem so strange. On her last night on Nebus, Kira stood in the garden with her parents. Remember who you are, Lord Taeyun said. You are of the House of Taeyun. Hold your head high. But not too high, Lady Gia added with a small smile. The ceilings on space stations are not built for Nabi, let alone tall ones. Kira laughed softly. I will remember to duck. Lady Gia's eyes filled with tears. I have something for you. She handed Kira a small pouch. Inside was a seed, dark blue and shaped like a star. This is a night bloom, Lady Gia explained. It only grows on Nebus. Plant it wherever you find a home, and it will remind you of us. Kira clutched the seed tightly. I will come back, she promised. Lord Taeyun shook his head. Go forward, not back. Find a place where you are valued for who you are, not judged for what you look like. The next morning, Kira boarded the transport ship. As it lifted off, she watched Nebus grow smaller below her. She thought she could see her parents, standing in their garden, 2 tiny figures waving goodbye. For the first time in her life, Kira felt a strange feeling. It took her a moment to recognize it. It was hope. The transport ship accelerated, and Nebus vanished from view. Ahead lay Harmony Station and whatever future waited for her there. Kira sat back in her seat and straightened her shoulders. She had spent her whole life trying to appear smaller. Perhaps it was time to see what she could do by standing tall. The transport ship docked at Harmony Station with a gentle bump. Kira gathered her few bags and waited for the other passengers to exit first. She had learned this habit early in life. Let the normal-sized people go first so they would not have to walk behind her and stare. When she finally stepped through the airlock, Kira's eyes widened. Harmony Station was bigger than she had imagined. The main concourse stretched before her in a wide arc, following the curve of the station's wheel shape. The ceiling rose high above, at least 15 feet, making Kira feel less cramped than she had expected. People of many species hurried past her. Kira saw the short four-armed Vex scurrying between the legs of taller beings. She noticed the thin, graceful Ilani, with their blue skin. There were even a few other Nabi, though none looked her way. And there were humans. So many humans, in all shapes and colors. Some were shorter than the average Nabi female. Others were taller, though none as tall as Kira. They moved with a strange energy, talking loudly and laughing openly in a way that would be considered rude on Nebus. Kira hunched her shoulders, trying to look smaller, an old habit she could not break. She checked the information disk her father had given her. She needed to find the residential section first, then report to the botanical gardens for her work assignment. The crowd in the concourse pushed and moved in ways Kira was not used to. On Nebus, everyone kept a proper distance. Here, people brushed past each other without apology. A small Vex bumped into her leg and scurried away without looking up. 2 humans walked straight toward her, deep in conversation, forcing Kira to step aside. She felt lost and overwhelmed. The map on her disc made no sense when compared to the actual station. Kira moved to one side of the concourse, trying to get her bearings. She stood next to a wall, studying the disc and looking up to match it with her surroundings. "You look a bit lost," a voice said. Kira looked down to see a human male smiling up at her. He wore a gray uniform with green stripes on the shoulders. "I am trying to find Residential Section 8, Kira said, her voice formal and careful. The human's smile grew wider. "You're on the wrong level completely. Residential sections are 2 levels down." He pointed to a moving staircase at the end of the concourse. "Take that down twice, then follow the blue line on the floor. Section 8 is about halfway around." "Thank you," Kira said with a small bow of her head, the proper Navy way to show gratitude. The human gave a strange little wave. "No problem. Welcome to Harmony." As Kira followed his directions, she felt a small sense of relief. The human had not stared at her height or seemed surprised by it. He had just helped her. Perhaps things would be different here after all. Kira's room in Residential Section 8 was small but comfortable. The ceiling was high enough that she did not have to duck, and the bed was longer than standard Navy size. Someone had made preparations for her arrival. After settling in, Kira checked the time. She had 1 hour before she needed to report to the botanical gardens. She used the time to wash away the staleness of space travel and change into clean clothes. As she left her room, Kira forced herself to stand straighter. "You are of the House of Taeyun," she whispered to herself, remembering her father's words. "Hold your head high." The botanical gardens were located on the outer ring of the station, where the artificial gravity was strongest. Kira followed the directions on her disc, taking 2 different transport tubes to reach the correct section. When she stepped out of the transport, she was immediately struck by the smell of growing things. The air was moist and rich with plant life. For the first time since leaving Nebus, Kira felt something like home. The entrance to the gardens was marked by a large, clear door. Kira approached it, and it slid open automatically. Inside, plants from dozens of worlds grew in carefully controlled sections. Some areas were hot and dry, others cool and wet. Special lights mimicked the different suns of different worlds. Kira was so distracted by the beautiful sight that she did not watch where she was going. As she turned a corner, she collided hard with someone coming from the opposite direction. Done. Impact sent the other person flying backward to the floor. Kira stayed standing. She was too solid to be knocked over by someone smaller. "I am so sorry," Kira said, immediately reaching down to help. On the floor was a human male, looking dazed. He wore the same gray uniform she had seen earlier, but with blue stripes instead of green. His tools had scattered across the walkway. Kira reached down and lifted him to his feet with ease. Her Navy strength could handle the weight of a human without difficulty. The human blinked up at her. For a moment, Kira expected to see fear or disgust in his eyes, the usual reaction when people realized how strong she was. Instead, he grinned. "That's some impressive strength you've got there," he said, brushing himself off. "I'm Ju-hyun. Most people call me Ju." Kira took a small step back, surprised by his reaction. "I am Kira, of the House of Taeyun. I apologize for the collision. I was not watching my path." Ju-hyun bent down to collect his tools. "No harm done. I wasn't paying attention either. Too busy thinking about the light panels." He pointed up at the ceiling, where long panels glowed, with different colors. "I'm trying to adjust the spectrum for the new Earth plants, but it's tricky getting it just right." Kira looked up at the lights. "On Nebus, we use crystal reflectors to create different light patterns for different plants." Ju-hyun's eyes lit up with interest. "Really? I've never heard of that. How does it work?" Before Kira could answer, a voice called from further inside the gardens. "You must be Kira," said an older human female walking toward them. "I'm Dr. Park, head of the Botanical Division. We've been expecting you." "Dr. Park, you should hear about these crystal reflectors. They use on Nebus," Ju-hyun said excitedly. "Sounds like it might solve our spectrum problems." Dr. Park looked from Ju-hyun to Kira with a raised eyebrow. "I see you've already met our chief engineer for the garden systems." "It was an accidental meeting," Kira said, feeling her face grow. Warm. The best kind, Ju-hyun said with a laugh. I literally ran into the solution to our problem. Dr. Park smiled. Well, Kira, after I show you your work area, perhaps you can tell us both about these crystal reflectors. As they walked deeper into the gardens, Kira realized that neither Dr. Park nor Ju-hyun had reacted to her height or strength. Dr. Park had looked up at her, but with no more reaction than she might show to any new worker. And Ju-hyun seemed more interested in the crystal reflectors than in how easily Kira had lifted him. For the first time in her life, Kira felt normal. Dr. Park showed Kira to a section filled with plants that reminded her of home. This will be your primary area. We're having trouble with the nitrogen-fixing symbiotes in the soil. The Nibi plants aren't thriving as they should. Kira immediately knelt down and touched the soil, feeling its texture between her fingers. The balance is wrong, she said. Nibi plants need more copper than most species, and the light is too white. It needs more blue. See? Ju-hyun said to Dr. Park. I told you we needed to adjust the spectrum. He turned to Kira. Would you have time to show me those crystal reflector designs later? Maybe we could adapt the concept. Kira looked up from the soil, surprised. You want my help with the lighting system? Of course, Ju-hyun said. You're the expert on Nibi plants, and it sounds like you know something about light systems we don't. Yes, Kira said, finding it hard to speak. On Nabus, no male ever asked for her opinion on anything. I would be happy to help. Great. Ju-hyun smiled. I finish my shift at 7. Want to get dinner in the Central Cafe and talk about it then? Before Kira could process what was happening, she heard herself say, yes. As Dr. Park led her through the rest of the garden, explaining her duties, Kira felt a strange lightness in her chest. Ju-hyun had asked for her help. He had invited her to dinner. He had looked at her and seen not a too tall, too strong Nibi female, but a person with valuable knowledge. She thought of her parents back on Nibus and wished they could see this moment. Here, on a station filled with different species from across the galaxy, her difference was not a flaw. It might even be a strength. Too large to mate, she was shunned, until the human Act 2 weeks passed quickly on Harmony Station. Kira found her days filled with work in the botanical gardens, and to her surprise, with social interactions too. The Nibi plants were already showing improvement under her care. The soil was now balanced correctly, and with Ju-hyun's help, the lighting had been adjusted to include more of the blue spectrum that Nibi plants needed. Today, Kira arrived at the gardens earlier than usual. She wanted to check on the seedlings she had planted yesterday. When the door slid open, she was surprised to find Ju-hyun already there, bent over a control panel near her section. Good morning, she said. Ju-hyun looked up and smiled. He always smiled when he saw her. It still felt strange to Kira. Morning. I was just adjusting the humidity controls for your section. I noticed the readings were a bit low overnight. Kira moved closer to look at the panel. Thank you. The seedlings need high humidity to develop their root systems. I remember, Ju-hyun said. You mentioned it yesterday. He had remembered her words. Another strange thing. On Nabus, males rarely remembered anything females said about plants or growing things. That was considered women's knowledge, not important enough to recall. I have been meaning to ask you something, Kira said as they both checked the seedlings. Why do humans vary so much in size? On Niebus, females are almost always 5 feet tall. Males are 6 feet. I am considered very abnormal. Ju-hyun straightened, up and leaned against the planter. Humans just naturally come in all different sizes. I'm about 5'10". That's 5 feet, 10 inches. That's pretty average for human males. But I have friends who are over 6.5 feet tall, and others who are barely 5 feet. And this does not cause problems for mating? Kira asked before she could stop herself. She felt her face grow warm. Such a personal question would be very rude on Nabus, but Ju-hyun just laughed. Not at all. Humans don't really care about height when it comes to choosing partners. Well, some do, I guess, but most of us care more about compatibility of mind and spirit, not whether someone fits some arbitrary physical standard. Compatibility of mind and spirit, Kira repeated. The concept was foreign to her. On Naebus, mating was based on physical compatibility first, social status second. The idea that neither might matter seemed impossible. What about on Naebus? Juhyun asked. Is height really that important? Kira looked down at the tiny seedlings. It is everything. Females must be smaller than males. Males must not pair with females who are taller, as it upsets the natural order. I was marked as unsuitable because no male would want a female who towers over him. Juhyun was quiet for a moment. That seems like a waste of a lot of great people just because of something they can't control. It is tradition, Kira said, though the words felt empty now. She had said them many times on Naebus, trying to accept her fate. Here, with Juhyun, looking at her with genuine confusion, the tradition seemed less wise. Well, I think human tradition makes more sense in this case, Juhyun said. Judge people by who they are, not how tall they are. He checked his watch. I've got to run to a meeting. Are we still on for lunch? Kira nodded. Yes, I will meet you at the cafe. As he left, Kira thought about what he had said. Judge people by who they are. What a strange and wonderful idea. Over the following weeks, Kira learned more about humans from Juhyun. They often ate lunch together in the central cafe. Sometimes they walked around the station after their shifts ended. He showed her the observation deck where they could see the stars, and the recreation area where station residents played games and exercised. Have you ever tried music from Earth? Juhyun asked one day as they sat in the garden during their lunch break. Kira shook her head. Naibi music is very formal. It is played only at official ceremonies. Music only at ceremonies? That's so sad, Juhyun said. He pulled a small device from his pocket. Here, listen to this. He placed small speakers near her ears, and suddenly Kira heard sounds unlike anything on Naebus. The music was fast and energetic, with a strong beat that made her want to move. What do you think? Juhyun asked when the song ended. It is alive, Kira said, struggling to find the right words. Naibi music is like a calm lake. This is like a rushing river. Juhyun laughed. That's a perfect description. Hey, there's a human cultural event happening tomorrow night. Would you like to go? You could see more earth music and dancing. Kira hesitated. On Naebus, she had never been invited to social events. But this was not Naebus. Yes, she said. I would like that. The human cultural event was held in the station's largest community space. When Kira arrived, the room was already filled with people, most of them human. Colorful lights moved across the ceiling, and that energetic earth music played loudly. Kira stood frozen at the entrance. Suddenly she felt as out of place as she had on Naebus. She was still the tallest person in the room. People would stare. They would whisper. She was about to turn and leave when she felt a touch on her arm. Juhyun stood beside her, smiling up at her. You came, he said, his voice raised to be heard over the music. I was just leaving, Kira said. I do not belong here. Juhyun's smile faded. Why not? Kira gestured at the crowd. I am too different, too tall. Look again, Juhyun said, pointing into the crowd. Really look. Kira looked where he pointed. She saw humans of many heights and sizes. Some were dancing energetically. Others stood talking in groups. No one was looking at her or whispering. No one cares that you're tall, Kira, Juhyun said gently. This isn't Naebus. People here are used to differences. It's what makes Harmony Station work. He held out his hand. Dance with me. Kira stared at his hand. I do not know how to dance to this music, and I will crush your feet. Juhyun laughed. I've survived worse. Besides, in human dancing, it's about finding your own rhythm together. It doesn't matter if you're tall or I'm shorter. We just move how the music makes us feel. Hesitantly, Kira took his hand. It felt small in hers, but warm and strong. He led her to the edge of the dancing area. Just watch for a minute, he said. See how everyone moves differently? There's No right way. Kira observed the dancers. Juhyun was right. Some humans danced with big movements, swinging their arms and jumping. Others moved more subtly, just swaying to the beat. No one seemed to be following specific steps. Now just try moving a little, Juhyun said, demonstrating a simple step side to side. Feel the beat? Kira tried to copy him, feeling awkward and large, but Juhyun smiled encouragingly. That's it. Now add a little bounce if you want. Slowly, Kira began to feel the rhythm. The music seemed to move through her body, telling her how to move. When Juhyun spun in a circle, she tried it too, surprised at how free it felt. For one wonderful hour, Kira forgot she was too tall, too strong, too different. She was just a person, dancing with a friend, feeling the music like everyone else. Later, as they took a break to get drinks, Kira noticed something strange. Her face hurt. It took her a moment to realize why. She was smiling. Not the small, polite smile that Navy women were taught to use, but a big, uncontrolled smile that showed her teeth and made her cheeks ache. You're having fun, Juhyun said, noticing her realization. I am, Kira agreed. I did not expect that. Why not? You're allowed to have fun, you know. Kira considered this. On Nebus, unmarried females were expected to be quiet and proper. Fun was not a word used for adult activities. Nibus sounds more and more like a place I wouldn't enjoy, Juhyun said when she explained this to him. It is beautiful, Kira said, feeling a need to defend her home. The forests are ancient. The cities are made of crystal that catches the light. The air smells of flowers. I'm sure it's lovely to look at, Juhyun said, but a beautiful cage is still a cage. Kira had never thought of Nebus as a cage before, but as she looked around at the humans dancing freely, expressing themselves, without fear of judgment, she understood what Juhyun meant. Thank you for bringing me here, she said. Thank you for coming, he replied, and for teaching me about Navy plants and crystal reflectors, and for making me see Harmony Station through new eyes. It's been educational. The way he said the last word made Kira's skin feel warm. She knew then that something inside her was changing. She was still Navy, still tall, still strong. But now those things were just parts of who she was, not flaws to be fixed. For the first time in her life, Kira felt like she might be exactly who she was supposed to be. 3 months passed on Harmony Station. Kira no longer walked with hunched shoulders, trying to appear smaller. She had stopped flinching when people looked at her. The botanical gardens thrived under her care, especially the Naibi plants that now grew strong and healthy. Kira's friendship with Juhyun had deepened. They spent most of their free time together, exploring the station or working on projects in the gardens. She had even met his human friends, who treated her like any other person. Not once had anyone mentioned her height as a problem. I received a message from my parents today, Kira told Juhyun as they ate lunch in the cafe. Good news? He asked. They say the Council of Elders has been asking about my work here. Apparently the plants I have sent back to Nebus are growing, better than any they have seen before. The head elder wants my techniques recorded for their archives. Juhyun grinned. See? They're starting to recognize your value. Kira shook her head. They value what I can do, not who I am. The message also mentioned that my unsuitable status remains unchanged. Juhyun's smile faded. That's ridiculous. You're the most suitable person I know. You're smart, kind, hardworking, but still too tall, Kira said, but without the sadness that would have filled her voice months ago. It does not matter as much now. I have found a place here where I can be useful. Before Juhyun could respond, a loud alarm began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed on the walls. Emergency alert. All personnel report to designated safety areas. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill, a computerized voice announced. People jumped up from their tables, moving quickly but calmly toward the exits. Juhyun stood immediately. That's the critical systems alarm, he said, his face serious. I need to get to engineering right away. You should go to your safety area. Kira rose to her feet. Where is that? Residential Section 8 has its own safety area. Follow the green lights in the floor. Ju-hyun was already moving toward the door. I'll find you when this is over. Kira watched him disappear into the crowd, then followed the flow of people moving toward the residential sections. The station's voice system continued to repeat the alert. Attention all personnel. We are experiencing a malfunction in the primary gravity generator. Please proceed to safety areas and await further instructions. Gravity generator. Kira knew that was serious. Harmony Station created artificial gravity by spinning like a giant wheel. But inside each section, gravity generators fine-tuned the force so people could live and work comfortably. If the main generator failed, some areas might lose gravity entirely while others might experience dangerous increases. As she moved through the corridors, Kira noticed the gravity felt strange, heavier than normal. Each step took more effort. Around her, smaller species like the Vex were struggling to move. Without thinking, Kira bent down and picked up a young Vex who could barely walk against the increasing gravity. "Thank you, tall one," the Vex said in its chirping voice. By the time Kira reached Residential Section 8, she carried 2 Vex and was helping a human woman who could barely walk. The safety area was already crowded with people. Medical staff moved among them, checking on those affected by the gravity changes. Kira handed the Vex to a medical worker and helped the human woman to a seat. Then she looked around. The increasing gravity was hard even for her, but not impossible. Her Naibi physiology was evolved for a higher gravity world than most species. The station's voice system spoke again. "Attention. Engineering reports gravity fluctuations throughout the station. Some sections are experiencing triple normal gravity. All personnel remain in safety areas. Engineering teams are working to solve the problem." Kira thought of Ju-hyun. He would be in engineering trying to fix the problem, but human bodies were not made for high gravity. He could be in danger. Without fully thinking it through, Kira left the safety area and headed toward the engineering section. The corridors were mostly empty now. Walking was difficult, like moving through deep water. She had to use the wall for support as she moved. When she reached the engineering section, she found chaos. The door was open, and she could see engineers working frantically at control panels. Some had collapsed on the floor, unable to stand in the heavy gravity. Ju-hyun was among those still working, but his movements were slow and pained. "The backup controls are in Section C," one engineer was saying. "But no one can get there. The gravity is 3 times normal in that section. If we don't reset the system soon, the fluctuations will damage the station structure," another said. Kira stepped into the room. "Ju-hyun," she called. He turned, his eyes widening when he saw her. "Kira, you should be in the safety area." "I can help," she said, moving carefully toward him. "Naibi evolved on a high-gravity world. I am stronger than humans." Ju-hyun looked at her with concern. "Even for a Naibi, triple gravity is dangerous." "What needs to be done?" Kira asked. The chief engineer, a woman Kira had seen with Ju-hyun before, spoke up. "Someone needs to get to Section C and reset the gravity control system manually. The pathway there is experiencing triple normal gravity. No human can make it." "I can," Kira said. Ju-hyun shook his head. "Kira, it's too dangerous." Kira looked at him seriously. "All my life, my size has been a curse. Let me use it for something good." Before he could argue further, Kira asked the chief engineer for directions to Section C. The woman quickly showed her the path on a station map and explained what buttons to press once she reached the control panel. "Be careful," Ju-hyun said, touching her arm. "Please," Kira nodded. "I will see you soon." The journey to Section C was the hardest physical challenge Kira had ever faced. The gravity grew stronger with each step she took. Her bones ached, her muscles burned. Breathing became difficult as her chest struggled against the weight of itself. She moved slowly, one step at a time. When walking became impossible, she crawled. When crawling became too hard, she pulled herself along the floor, inch by inch. All around her, she could hear the station creaking and groaning under the stress of the fluctuating gravity. If she failed, all these people, including Ju-hyun, would be in grave danger. "You are of the house of Taeyoon," she whispered to herself, her father's words giving her strength. "Hold your head high." After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, Kira reached Section C. The control room was empty, its normal staff having evacuated to safety areas. The backup control panel glowed on the far wall. Getting to her feet took all her remaining strength. Each movement felt like lifting a mountain, but Kira forced herself up, step by agonizing step. When she finally reached the panel, her vision was blurring from the strain. She focused on the instructions the chief engineer had given her. Press the blue button, enter the reset code. Turn the manual override key. With trembling fingers, Kira followed each step. When she turned the key, the panel flashed green. "Gravity reset initiated," the computer announced. Normalizing in 10 seconds. Kira collapsed to the floor as the crushing weight suddenly lifted. She lay there gasping for breath as the gravity returned to normal levels. "Gravity systems normalized," the station voice announced. "All personnel may return to regular duties. Medical teams, please report to affected areas." Kira closed her eyes, too exhausted to move. She had done it. The station was safe. She didn't know how long she lay there before she heard voices and running footsteps. "Kira!" It was Ju-hyun's voice. Then his hands were on her shoulders, gently turning her. "Are you all right? Kira, can you hear me?" She opened, her eyes to see his face tight with worry. Behind him stood several medical workers and engineers. "I did it," she whispered. The relief on his face was immediate. "Yes, you did. You saved the station." He helped her sit up slowly. "But you shouldn't have gone alone. You could have been killed." "I was not alone," Kira said, thinking of her father's words that had kept her going. "And I was the only one who could do it." The medical team moved forward to check her. One of them, a human doctor, looked at her with awe. "Triple gravity would have killed most species," he said. "Even a Navy shouldn't have been able to function in those conditions." "She's not most Navy," Ju-hyun said, still holding her hand. "She's Kira." As the medical team helped her onto a stretcher, Kira heard the chief engineer talking to her staff. "Make sure this goes in the official report. The station owes its safety to Kira of House Taeyoon. Without her, we might have lost structural integrity." Ju-hyun walked beside the stretcher as they moved toward the medical bay. "I told you your size was a strength," he said quietly. Kira smiled weakly. For the first time in her life, she truly believed it. Kira spent 3 days in the medical bay recovering from her ordeal in the high gravity. The doctor said she was lucky. Her Naibi physiology was stronger than most species, but even she had pushed beyond safe limits. She had bruising on her internal organs and strain in her muscles that would take time to heal. What surprised Kira most was the visitors. People she barely knew came to thank her. The captain of the station visited personally, standing tall and proud despite having to look up at Kira's bed. "You showed exceptional courage," the captain said. "Harmony Station is in your debt." But the constant visitor, the one who stayed the longest and came the most often, was Ju-hyun. He brought her food from the cafe, data pads with books to read, and news about the gardens. "Your plants miss you," he told her on the 3rd day. "Dr. Park says even she can't get them to grow like you do." Kira smiled. "They need to be spoken to in Naibi. The vibrations help their cell development." "You never told me that," Ju-hyun said. "No wonder mine always die." They laughed together, and Kira felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with her injuries. Over these months, Ju-hyun had become more than a friend. He made her feel things she had never expected to feel. On Nibus, she had accepted that she would never have a mate, never know the closeness that other Navy females experienced. But here with Ju-hyun, she wondered if perhaps such things were possible after all. "I have news," Ju-hyun said, his expression growing serious. "A message came for you from Nabus. The station related to me since you were here." Kira's heart beat faster. "From my parents? From the Council of Elders," Ju-hyun said. handing her a datapad. I didn't read it, but they marked it urgent. Kira took the pad with shaking hands. Messages from the council were rare and usually not good news. She touched the screen and the message appeared. 2. Kira of House Taeyun from the High Council of Nibus greetings. News of your actions on Harmony Station has reached Nibus. The Fried Galactic Council representative has informed us that your quick thinking and natural Navy strength prevented a serious disaster. The High Council recognizes your service as a credit to Nabus and House Taeyun. After careful consideration, we have voted to revoke your unsuitable status. You are invited to return home where you will be welcomed as a hero of Nibus. Your father, Lord Taeyun, awaits your response. Kira read the message twice, not quite believing the words. They had revoked her unsuitable status. She could go home. She could be normal. She looked up at Juhyun, who was watching her face carefully. Bad news? He asked. No, Kira said slowly. The Council of Elders has revoked my unsuitable status. They want me to return to Nibus as a hero. Juhyun's face went still. Oh, that's good news then. But he didn't sound happy. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars beyond the station. Will you go? He asked, without turning around. Kira stared at his back. The answer should have been simple. 3 months ago it would have been. All she had ever wanted was to be accepted on Nabus, to be normal, to belong. But now, they're accepting me now because I saved lives, she said slowly. Not because they've changed their minds about who I am. Juhyun turned to face her. What do you mean? They still think being tall is wrong. Being strong is wrong. Being different is wrong. They just found a use for those things. Kira set the datapad down beside her. If I return, I will be a hero, yes, but still an oddity. Still not truly one of them. So what will you do? Juhyun asked again. Kira looked around the small medical room. Beyond its walls lay Harmony Station, where she had found friends, purpose, and acceptance, where her height and strength were valued, not just tolerated. I have been thinking about the human colony on Proxima Centauri, she said. Dr. Park mentioned they are looking for botanical specialists. The plants there are having trouble adapting to the soil. I could help. Juhyun's eyes widened slightly. Proxima Centauri? That's pretty far from Nabus. Yes, Kira agreed. And from Harmony Station, too. Juhyun walked back to her bedside and sat down. He seemed to be struggling with words, something unusual for him. I've been offered a position on Proxima's engineering team, he finally said. To work on their environmental systems. I was going to turn it down, but... But? Kira prompted, her heart beating faster again. But I hear the gravity there is perfect for dancing. He finished, a small smile forming on his lips. Kira felt the warmth in her chest expand. You would go too? If you wanted company on the journey, Juhyun said. It's a long trip, 3 months in a transport ship. Good thing I know someone who's excellent at growing fresh food in space, Kira smiled. And good thing I know someone who can keep the lights working properly for those plants. They looked at each other, and Kira saw in Juhyun's eyes what she had begun to feel herself. Humans called it love. Niobe had no word for it because it wasn't supposed to be part of the mating process. Finding a compatible mate was about physical matching and social standing, not this warm, growing feeling. I need to send messages, Kira said, to my parents and to the council. What will you tell them? The truth, that I am grateful for their offer, but I have found a place where I can use my skills and be valued for who I am, not what I look like. Juhyun nodded. The doctor says you can leave tomorrow. Want to get dinner at the cafe to celebrate? We can talk about Proxima. Yes, Kira said. I would like that very much. 2 months later, Kira stood at the viewing window of the transport ship bound for Proxima Centauri. Beside her stood Juhyun, his hand resting comfortably in hers. Behind them, in the cargo hold, were crates of Niobe plants and seeds. Kira's mother had sent them as a parting gift, along with the blessing of House Taeyun. Her father's message had been simple. Find where you belong, not where you are merely accepted. Harmony Station had grown smaller and smaller as the ship pulled away, until it was just a glinting point of light among the stars. Now, as the ship prepared for its first faster-than-light jump, Kira felt a strange mix of sadness and excitement. Having second thoughts? Ju-hyun asked, noticing her expression. No, Kira said truthfully. Just thinking about how far I've come. From that garden on Nabus watching a ceremony I couldn't join, Ju-hyun squeezed her hand. You know, on Proxima, they have their own ceremonies, and I hear everyone is invited no matter how tall they are. Is that so? Kira said, smiling down at him. Absolutely. In fact, being tall is an advantage. You can reach all the best fruits. Kira laughed, a free and open sound she would never have made on Nabus. Tell me more about these Proxima ceremonies. Well, there's the planting festival in spring, where everyone helps plant the new crops, and the harvest dance in fall. As Ju-hyun described life on the colony, Kira looked out at the stars streaking past. Somewhere ahead lay Proxima Centauri and a new life. A life where her differences were strengths, not flaws. A life with someone who saw her as she truly was and loved her for it. She had written one final message to her parents before boarding the ship. I am going where my size is not a flaw but a strength. I am going where I can build a life based on who I am, not what I look like. I am going where I am loved, not merely tolerated. Perhaps someday Nabus will learn what humans already know, that differences aren't mistakes, they're opportunities. As the ship accelerated to faster than light speed, Kira stood tall, all 8 feet of her with Ju-hyun by her side. She no longer hunched her shoulders or tried to appear smaller. For the first time in her life, she was exactly the right size. The stars blurred into streaks of light, carrying them toward a future neither could have imagined alone, but one they would build together. Different, but perfectly matched.